Hello, my name is Zach, and today I'll be teaching a power off stall maneuver. So we'll write that up here so we know what it is we're going over. Power off stall. So this is one of many maneuvers you will be taught to handle or perform during private pilot training in an airplane. This, and you also have another kind of stall, power on stall, but we'll be going over the power off today, obviously. It's debatably one of the more important ones that you need to learn during your private training because it can have the worst effect in terms of injury or crashing and stuff like that. So it's very important to know how to recover from a stall, power off stall. So power off stall can happen basically for one of two reasons: critical angle of attack is exceeded, or your airspeed is just too low, therefore no more lift is being produced. And that's also what happens when your critical angle of attack is exceeded. That airflow is disturbed and no longer streamlined over your wing, so it is broken and you're therefore producing more lift. So we'll put that right here. So power off stalls occur usually on most of the time when you're on your final for landing. So basically during the landing phase of flight. And it makes sense because you typically are going to have a lot of power pulled out, or when you're over the runway, your power is going to be pulled all the way out. So that is what you practice for, and that is when it can happen. That is a phase of flight that it most likely will happen if it does happen. So before we get any further into this, the thing that we want to stress is trying not to put yourself in this situation in the first place. So when you're on final, coming into land, constantly do a cross check, make sure your airspeed is up, make sure you don't hear any stall horns going off. And you don't actually ever want to hear your stall horn, you just want to make sure your airspeed is high enough so that way that'll never happen and you don't even put yourself in that situation. So that's number one. So number two is you need to know how to recover from it if it does happen. If you do put yourself in that situation, maybe something happens, you get distracted and your airspeed is too low and you hear your stall horn go off. So to practice the power off stall, first things first, you never want to practice power off stall or any kind of stall for that matter at a low altitude. You always want to be up 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 feet. And obviously the airplanes that we practice them in are the Warrior, Archer, Arrow, things like that. Those kind of airplanes are the ones we have to school. So the first thing you do in a power off stall to practice it is during straight level flight at altitude, you want to pick a point off of your nose, because this is kind of a, not necessarily a ground reference maneuver, but the reason you want to pick the point off your nose is once you fully recover, you want to see how coordinated you were during that recovery. And we'll get into that. It's very important to stay coordinated as well. So the first thing you want to do is you want to pull your power all the way back, because this is a power off stall and that is what you're simulating here. So once you do that, you're going to just hold the nose right at the horizon, so straight and level. And this will start bleeding airspeed, so basically reducing your airspeed. So while that's happening, you want to introduce flaps in increments. And this is another one of those things that ties into the landing phase of flight. Typically when you come into land, you're going to have flaps in, so you want to simulate as best you can that you're coming into land or you're on your final. So that's why you want to introduce your flaps, and it helps you get your airspeed down a lot quicker. So once you introduce the flaps,